Okay, so with that, I just want to thank you all for joining the, where are we, September monthly meeting. Tonight, we have a wonderful panel of candidates for Strafford County Sheriff. So what I'll let you all do is kind of moderate yourselves. You are welcome to talk to about 20 minutes. That is your spiel, whatever you want to tell to the committee, and then take questions. To the committee, I would just say, please raise your hand, and then one of our lovely speakers can call on you. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts before we start? No? All right. Kathryn, because you are on my top left, I'll start with you if that's okay.
Sure. Right. Not as used to Google Meets. I think I like it. And then, so is everybody that's here part of the Lee Democrats group? So residents of Lee and
Yep, just Lee. But we do have our representative Janet Wall from Madbury. She has joined us as well. So it's everyone in this area.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm just not sure I can see the whole screen. So maybe that was mine. I should have asked that as a prior question. Let me just, I'll set my timer.
Amanda, it's Janet. Do you have me? Hello, Amanda, it's Janet. Do you have me?
Yes, Janet. Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Sure. Good, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for organizing this. This is nice. We've got 5 days till Election Day, so this is probably our last meeting, the three of us together, and it's nice to have people, voters that care and are invested, and it's great to have this opportunity, so thank you. So I am Kathryn Mone. I'm running for sheriff. One of my main reasons for running is to, I want to give a fresh perspective, somebody from the outside of the organization, to have a new look and a fresh start. So I have over 20 years of law enforcement experience. I started as a police officer in Madbury when I was still a student at UNH, and I worked there for a little while. I think I started around 2001. And then I went and worked at the Durham Police Department for 16 years. During that time too, I also got my degree from UNH, and then went on to get my master's in public administration from UNH. From my 16 years in Durham, I then went and became the police chief in Northampton, where I was for 4.5 years. And then for the last just over a year, I've been at the York County Sheriff's Office in York County, Maine. I'm a major there currently, and I run the patrol division. I'm also still certified in New Hampshire. So I have my certification, law enforcement certification in both places, which is current. And I have training, have lots and lots of different types of training over the years, and always tried to be up and with the most progressive and latest policies and procedures, and making sure that we're doing things right wherever I am. I went to the FBI National Academy in 2017, which was a 10-week-long program that is really great for its local and federal partners and state partners, and you make a lot of connections, and also learn what the FBI can do for local communities, which is can be really important, and we expect to be important coming up with the election season, and also with missing people and big investigations. It's really good to have those external partners. What else? Still got quite a few more minutes. So I live in Durham. My husband and I are raising our 2 kids here. We have 2 sons in middle school that keep us very busy. Let me think. 20 minutes is longer than which I could take. I could do all kinds of questions, or I could talk about some of the things with Strafford County. So I've lived in Strafford County almost my whole life, which is, I've enjoyed my time in Maine, and I think it's given me a great perspective of some things that they do that are good, that I might bring over, but also just how much I really like the way New Hampshire does policing, and it's ready to be back doing that. Some of the other things I'm involved, I also I teach at Great Bay Community College, which is one of my favorite things, is to teach intro to criminal justice. Well, I'm teaching that for the first time this semester, and I've taught a couple others, but this one is really fun to see the next generation of people that are somewhat either interested in criminal justice or just want to become better citizens. It's been really enjoyable to be able to go back to my roots and what made me fall in love with law enforcement, and have eager young minds doing that too. It can touch a little bit on what I expect in the sheriff's office. I mean, we've talked when we've talked before, the three of us, a lot of the questions are what the sheriff's office does, which, I could give that spiel, but we all have different perspectives of what the sheriff's office does. And I mean, it's a legal, it's in the Constitution, and each state is different, and New Hampshire is unique in what we're responsible for. And being the only elected position in law enforcement is a very unique situation too, which I didn't think that I would be ever really be interested in, because of I've been very much not wanting to be involved in politics, because I believe that in that neutrality with law enforcement, that I didn't want to be, I don't want to be seen as partisan in making those making law enforcement decisions. But working in the sheriff's office and seeing some of the things that my sheriff does in Maine, and what the possibilities are of an elected position in this, there's definitely some really significant efforts that a Democratic sheriff could be making in terms of being an expert in gun safety and the things that we're facing in the communities, that being a Democratic leader could definitely has its positives. So trying to think maybe I'll do, if there's questions, and then if there aren't questions, then I'll say some other things. But any questions at the moment for me?
Hi. I didn't raise my hand. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't see a hand. Sorry.
Yeah,
is that
go ahead.
Dean Rubine? Go ahead.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand. Hi, I'm Dean Rubine. I can't turn on my video either, but I'm the middle school math coach. If you want to send your kids over. I was a big supporter of Mark Brave. I put out signs for him, and I saw him speak. And let me just. Do you want to comment on him?
Sorry. So, comment on
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Did you want me to comment on the situation that's?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I met him at a call like this, and I just want to know. Yeah, I mean, you can comment on him any way you like.
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate for the Strafford County Sheriff's Office, for Strafford County as a community, for us in law enforcement. It's a really awful thing to have gone through for all of us in law enforcement. And so I definitely appreciate, I've been looking at the numbers. Yeah, there's so many people in this community that voted for him. I think that it is one of the reasons, it is really what, I mean, it's the reason I'm running. I never would have thought I wanted to be a sheriff or the sheriff in Strafford County, but what that motivated me to really want to make a change there and rebuild the trust, because that's, I want to meet each of you, and I want you to be able to come to the sheriff's office and ask your sheriff, you know, what's that what did you spend that $5 on? And I want and would expect that every single citizen in this county to be asking and demanding to know, have proof that that's never going to happen again. And I would not take that as, you know, confrontation of me or attacking on me. I would ask you to please ask me as the sheriff to prove to you that I would never misuse your trust in that way. And I think that we owe that. I think that law enforcement owes that to the community. I think so. Anyway, that is my comment on that. That I feel, you know, awful that he did that to us, to all of us as individuals. You know. So, thanks for the question, and that's my response. And thanks for your work at the middle school.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. All. I've got a question for you. I appreciate the remarks you just made, and you've got a substantial background, that's for sure. And I remember when you were in Madbury. What important changes, besides getting things back in order at the county since what's happened with this terrible circumstance, what changes would you like to see in the Sheriff's Department, and what would you like to continue doing at the Sheriff's Department? What can we expect?
Good question. And I think my first answer would be you would not expect any changes very, very quickly, because from what I can tell, and it's running right now, it's running well, and it's running, you know, the way it should be. So from the outside, I can't say I would go in and change this, this, and this. I will say that I would take a close look at all the policies and procedures, making sure that we are following them, because I know that they are good policies, because they're accredited policies. I've been involved in accreditation since for over 20 years. So I know that the policies are in a good place, and I need to make sure that the policies are being followed. I want to look at so basically no changes to start. And the main change would be connecting with the community, and me connecting with the department. So it would be me coming in from the outside, because that would be what would be new, is me making the connections with the department, with the deputies, and then also with the public and the towns and the commissioners. So, and I've definitely, having led an organization before, I know going in and making changes right away is not a good idea.
Thank you very, very much. Excellent answer. Appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for running.
Thank you. Any other questions? No other questions that I can see. I can keep saying a little more?
If you want to say more, you're more than welcome to. We can always move it to the next person. And then if someone should come up with a question, and, you know, or if it's a question for all three of you, maybe we can come back towards the end, if that's okay.
Yeah. I'll take just a couple things. You know, I feel like this is my last opportunity, right, to potentially to talk to voters that I'm definitely hoping to get the votes. And I would also be excited to win and help work in getting Democrats elected in November. This is, I think, for someone who's never been in politics before, I feel like that would, or I know it would be really exciting to continue involvement in that way. Just, I guess, I have a few endorsements that I didn't even know what endorsements were until I started this. And then it's been kind of exciting to have people, you know, say that they trust me enough to put their name behind me, so a couple of the Durham state reps, that Lauren Selig and Marjorie Smith, and also Senator David Waters, our local senator from Dover. And then Bill Shaheen from Dover gave me his endorsement, which was really exciting for me. And I also have the endorsement of the New England Police Benevolent Association, which is the national organization that oversees a lot of the police unions in New Hampshire. And I was part of the union when I was in Durham, and then I was the president of the union also. And then when I was police chief, I negotiated contracts with the union, and it was really nice to get this endorsement from the that national organization, having worked with them in those capacities. So I appreciate that they would trust me at that other level, because the deputies that work in that office and the administration have definitely been through a lot over the course of this, and that would be building trust with them and making sure that they are equipped to serve the public effectively and be trusted is really critical at this stage. So I'll close with that, and I appreciate the questions and having us, and thank you very much.
Sure. So I will ask a question, because I'll ask all three of you. It's always the last question I ask everybody. It's how can the Lead Dems help you?
For me?
Yeah.
How can the Lead? Well, this is a great help. And just to tell people what you've learned, even, whether they're part of your group or whether they're people you run into at Market Basket, if you say that you had us and what you thought of us. And I think that this is a really big decision for the county. I think the sheriff's race, it was exciting in 2020 and now it needs to be important again. So I think that I appreciate the Lead Dems taking the sheriff's race seriously, because you do have contested rep races, and so I really appreciate that. And so even in the next few days, and if you know anybody that's interested in holding signs for that would be that's another thing I'm trying to get done. But yeah, spread the word, and also put people in touch. Also, if someone asks you a question when you're talking about us that you don't know the answer to, I would love for you to have them get in touch with me directly and making that happen. So that would be all great ways that the Lead Dems could support me as a candidate. So thank you.
So, you're welcome. So I'd say to all three of you, make sure before you end today, you put in the chat your contact information and phone number, email, website, whatever y'all want to share with the group. Make sure that you get it into the chat before we're done today.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay. So next up then, if it's okay with Tracy, Stephen is right in front, right in the center for me, on the top. Would you like to talk or chat for the next 20 minutes or so?
Well, I can try. We'll give it a shot for 20 minutes.
Awesome.
So again, thank you for hosting this. This is great to meet people and get the word out. So I started my career a while back, 1985. I joined the Air Force. The intent was to see the world. I was from Massachusetts, and they sent me to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and that's where I stayed for my Air Force career, like I think a lot of us from New England did. Shortly after that, when I got out, I started with the Somersworth Police Department. We settled in Dover, and we've lived here since. Sorry, that beep just kind of distracted a little bit. So with Somersworth, I started out in patrol, uniform patrol, and then got promoted to sergeant and did the patrol work, uniform patrol that everybody sees, and the most common face of law enforcement, so to speak. While there, IT and the CAD systems, things like that, were just getting started in law enforcement, which sounds odd that long ago, but that's what was going on. So we got that established, started teaching use of force through their department, and wound up establishing a dive team shortly after 9/11 that was intended to be a regional dive rescue team, essentially, that we got established, and took quite a while to get everybody up and running, but we did get it done. From there, I wound up transitioning over to Rochester Police Department in 2005, and it was a change of pace. I went from uniform patrol to investigations almost immediately when I went there. And I was assigned to sex assaults originally, and that grew into more of just a violent crime type of assignment. So not just sex assaults, but robberies, bad assaults that you'd read about, I mean, the nasty stuff. So we get to do that. During that time period, I started to get involved in the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which is probably one of the most rewarding parts of my career. And you can't underestimate its mission. It's to protect our kids. And it's, as a technology has been growing and growing and growing, it's also affecting law enforcement more and more and more. And it's involved in almost everything we do. So from that point, working streamlined into the investigations unit, but I also started getting heavily involved in ICAC. And part of ICAC's mission is to support smaller agencies that can't necessarily staff that type of investigation or to have the resources and the experience to deal with them. They take repetition, they take a lot of training to keep up on. They cross town borders very quickly as soon as you sign on to the internet, and then you're talking states, countries, it can grow. So with that, we were partnered with the Department of Homeland Security investigations almost since ICAC has started. And some of the core people from the task force are always linked, or what they call a Title 19, which gives us Customs and Border Enforcement Authority so that we can pursue these cases beyond our borders if we need to. While I did that, I did serve on their SWAT team for a while, and almost a decade in Rochester. I was a sniper. I supervised their use of force program and trained their tactical officers during that time period that I was there. When I was getting ready to move on from that part, we had grown the ICAC response in this area quite a bit. Rochester was dealing with regional cases at that point, and manning is tight with those task force officers. So rather than walk away from it later in my career, I contacted the county attorney's office and I contacted the sheriff's office and offered to establish a lab at the county level, with the thought that rather than it being more restricted to one municipality, the focus would be regional. And that was in 2018. And we've successfully done that. We now have a lab at the county that's been there since 2018. It's grown. We've certainly added equipment and more capabilities and personnel. But rather than being concentrated locally, it's now a regional resource that we use. We're also tapped into by the county attorney's office for more in-depth forensic cases, expert review of the digital electronics, because it's not just ICAC cases or Internet Crimes Against Children cases anymore. Digital electronics is crossing into every case now, especially at a felony level. It's everywhere, whether it's a domestic violence case, a homicide case, it's got a component typically that's electronic that we can garner evidence out of. So we're very happy that that's taken off the way it has. That was kind of a fortunate path that we took, because I want to touch on this whole thing with Mark Brave as well. That task force enabled a lot of partnerships through the Attorney General's office that we worked very closely with the task force, with investigators around the state that have a great deal of experience and expertise in what they do. So later on, that came in very handy. I came back full time in 2021 as a sergeant to the Strafford County Sheriff's Office. And the idea was to oversee that forensic lab and to establish it firmly so that when people do ride off into the sunset, the lab doesn't disappear because they retired or moved on. The whole idea is to have redundancy in place, have somebody replacing you that can move forward and keep the mission going. Shortly after that, I got promoted to major, put in charge of the investigations unit. I was given the emergency management division, which is major storms, things like that, the messages getting out, that type of thing through communications. Our regional dispatch center, the operations side, and also our budget, which comes in handy here very soon. Some of our previous budgets had not been very accurate. That was something that was very obvious very fast. And that got gripped onto very quickly. When we started to notice improprieties that were going on, again, those partnerships from the past paid off. I can't go too far into the case, but I can tell you that it was generated from inside. So it wasn't somebody outside looking at the books, finding a problem and having us have to react. This was, we knew there was an issue. We went to the right people and we were able to move that case forward. If you think about that, and you're working for the person you're investigating, and it makes it beyond difficult. I'm glad I had the years under my belt that I do, because it was trying for me and the rest of our staff. Most of the people that worked there did not realize what was going on or the depth that it went to. We continued forward. We tried to keep the operation running as absolutely smoothly as we could and continue the mission forward. We could not, and the painful part of it is people would see news reports and it's involving a police department or a sheriff's office, and there's an instant, oh my God, they're all crooked. They're all the same. That takes a lot to overcome. You have to protect your officers from the public embarrassment. We had to keep the mission forward. We kept going. I can say that in the time period that we were investigating the sheriff, our mission moved forward. Our civil unit, which is our core duty aside from transports, had served over 4,700 civil orders that year. We also made over 4,060 state and federal prisoner transports because we're tightly interwoven with the Marshal Service. We reinstated our POP unit, which is problem-oriented policing. So that unit, yes, it can be used for drug enforcement. It's also used for area problems. If a town's identifying, hey, we have a huge issue in this one corner, in this one area, we don't have the resources for it, that's what a POP unit is for. They can address those issues that are public problems. That's the whole idea. That unit during this time period seized over 49 pounds of fentanyl in this region. Living in Dover for as long as I have, that was shocking to me, even being in law enforcement, that much of that type of drug was out there. We also seized 29 pounds of methamphetamine and only about 1.5 pounds of cocaine. So I guess we can tell what's more popular in this area. We also seized 10 firearms and various pills and currencies and things like that. But keep in mind, this is going on while we're investigating our own office with, luckily, the great assistance of the Attorney General, and I can't thank their office enough for the work they did. As this started to unfold, we also did the Motorola project, as we'll refer to it, which was a complete revamp of the county communication system. The radio system was archaic compared to what should be in place, especially for a regional center that's responsible for multiple towns and to ensure that they have the communications they need when they need them. When we finally got it finished, and it took about 1.5 years, we went from 60% coverage throughout the county to about 99 point, I think it's 1 or 2%. And there's a little grid that they actually tested every node on the map. And that greatly enhanced the communications capabilities of these officers. A lot of these towns in Strafford County have one officer on duty at night sometimes. Communications are critical. They have to be able to get a hold of dispatch. And we're very proud of how that turned out, the stability of it. It got stress tested this winter when we had the ice storms, and it was bad. But we came through it and it worked. And that was the whole goal. During the investigation, I was the major. Above me was Chief Deputy McGibbon, and then we had the sheriff. As the sheriff was finally, I guess the best word to be incapacitated in his role through the legal system, we had to step up and take care of the rest of the agency and continue it going. It can't just cease operations at that point. So all of this was going on simultaneously while we worked day by day, hour by hour with the Attorney General's office to ensure the integrity of the case and to make sure it had a successful outcome. Those cases are delicate. We couldn't share a lot of information. The press did a lot of it for us. We did have a lot of cooperation, believe it or not, with them. I don't think we've ever answered as many 91As and public information requests that I've ever seen in my career. We started every day with checking the news reports for what's in the news today about Mark Brave. And I'm proud to say the office came through the other side. We've been fully functional without the sheriff since last summer, and it's thriving, and you can tell by those results. At this point, like I said, we're proud of it. Last meeting we had, somebody mentioned that the trial could be embarrassing. Honestly, we want the trial, and I want the information to come out publicly, because one of our biggest battles is the perception that people have from reading news or rumors rather than knowing the truth of how that investigation played out, why it was successful, and how we came through the other side. That information will come out at some point, but we can't jeopardize an ongoing criminal investigation either. So I guess it's one of those, let's all wait, get that information out. And I think everybody's going to feel a lot better. And frankly, I think you're going to be quite proud of the personnel that work at the office, were involved in that investigation and saw it through to the other side. Since I've been a full-time officer in New Hampshire since '89, and I've never been so proud of officers in law enforcement that were able to stand up, maintain their integrity, and do what is expected from the public to see it through. It shouldn't matter if it's a line officer or the sheriff of the agency. If you're violating the law, you're going to be held accountable. And it was, again, the Attorney General's office, I can't thank them enough. Their public integrity unit got tested with this because it was a new unit that year. And they, instead of having a very simple, I'm pretty sure he might have stolen $1 out of a car case, they had one of probably the bigger cases they've had to deal with. And they had to do it off the start and navigate through it. So we're quite happy the way it's turned out, how the agency has moved on from it, maintained its integrity. And we are a clear accredited agency. And we just, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, we received the results because we just had our review last week. We passed. So I guess that's a good thing. We came out on the other side, and we're quite happy about that. So the office is intact. It's stronger than it was before, and we want to keep that momentum moving forward. I guess that's about all I got. Sorry if it's not 20 minutes.
You don't have to talk for the full 20. It's absolutely,
yeah, right.
I want to make sure that Janet's question gets asked to both. So you've talked so lovely about everything that has happened over the last couple of years with the Sheriff's Department. And I will say Mark was a friend of the Lee Dems. He was on our calls quite frequently. So as you can imagine, for us, it was a surprise. So thank you for everything that you just shared. What do you, because you're so in the middle of everything.
In the mix, yeah.
Yeah. What can you, how do you think that the sheriff's office should move forward? Like, why are you running, and what changes do you want to see? Because you've already talked about how great the team is and all the great things that y'all have done. What are the next steps, and why do you want to be part of that?
I am not a political person. I've been in law enforcement my whole career. I don't think law enforcement and politics should mix. I don't agree with it. I think we all learned a lesson about that from that last election. I think the backgrounds weren't what they should have been or established that way. And I think the region paid a price for that with electing somebody that really had no business in that office. And if a actual background had been done properly, I think we would have had different results. But we were handed the deal, the hand of cards we were dealt. We had to deal with it. The only way to fix something at that point is to move forward and clean it up. It did take a lot of work. It was there were a lot of sacrifices by a lot of people that worked there. And their whole goal was to maintain the stability of the office, because the public shouldn't have to pay the price for having that type of situation play out the way it did. My motivation is to maintain those units that we've built, continue to serve people the way we have been. And I think we've proven that over the last year. The results from the agency are incredible. I've never seen the office perform to the level it is, and it's thriving at this point. Most of the agencies in the area are starving for manpower at this point. We aren't. We do have 1 or 2 openings if anybody's interested. But some of the regional areas, that 60, 70 man departments are down upwards of 10 officers. That hurts. And we're not suffering from that. So.
Cool. Does anyone have any questions for Stephen?
I have a quick question, Janet Wall.
Hi, Janet.
The Sheriff's Department really went through a very traumatic situation and had substantial challenges this past year and all. What is morale like at this point? How are people? It sounds like a lot of people had to do an awful lot of cleaning up and holding the department together. How is the morale at the department right now?
Well, I think our staffing numbers speak to that. Law enforcement's delicate these days, and keeping staff is very delicate. We're not going to cut corners. Our hiring practices have changed since that sitting sheriff, and we are a lot more strict than probably some of the regional area departments. We're not going to compromise. We're not going to allow that back into our walls. We're demanding people have the proper credentials, proper backgrounds, and their performance is monitored. The morale in the office is actually quite high. Nervous, it's an election year, and that's what's different about a municipality versus a sheriff's office. Everything can change in an election. There are people in specialized positions that are experts in the area, not just in our region, but in the Northeast. They're very good at what they do. They're not the type that are going to post it on Facebook or go to the Fosters. It's like 49 pounds of fentanyl being seized, and most of you probably have no idea that we made those seizures. We're not the type of office that is going to publicize numbers like that, because frankly, if you do, a lot of our investigative techniques get negated because they kind of know we're out there looking for them. It changes the game quite a bit. The morale is good. We're not losing people. We're still hiring. We're hiring qualified people. In fact, we just took on an officer this week, and we have another one pending to come on. It's good. And I appreciate you asking that, because it wasn't, and it was rough last summer. Having a looming arrest hanging over the head of the agency is not an easy thing for people to deal with, going to work day to day and just trying to do their job. And technically it didn't affect them in their day-to-day duties. It affected him, it affected the budget, and we had to get that fixed. There were a couple people that had some other issues, and I can't go into that. And that all played out last summer. But the staff we have is committed. They're very good. And really, we can't thank them enough for the amount they put up with and how well they've persevered through this. And Dean, I appreciate your question. I kind of chuckled when you brought it up that, yes, you knew him, and he's a charismatic guy. And you're not the first to have said that. I've heard that many, many times. We had to deal with that. And a lot of people had, hey, he was a great guy. He seems super nice. We'll wait until the trial plays out. I'm very confident in the investigation. Again, I can't thank the Attorney General enough. If you've read the affidavits that have been put in the press and are publicized, The amount of work that the investigators did up there is, they were meticulous. And I will share this with you. We did, as sort of a backlash, everybody's heard of MRI, and they do independent investigations of agencies from municipalities or police departments. And we had one that spanned about 6 months because almost everybody in the agency was a witness, between supervisors and subordinates. And it's about a 500-page report. They were thorough. So not only do we go through the Attorney General's office, but we had an MRI investigation. The MRI investigation had a slew of allegations by certain folks that were involved. We came out on the other end very well. In fact, very little was cited in so far as what people were doing wrong, but it was more about what they were doing right. So we were pleased to see that come out, the result of it. It was stressful for officers to go through that between the Attorney General investigation and the MRI investigation, but it had to be done. You have to have everything documented, clear, and the transparency with the public as much as you can. During a case like that, you really can't just throw information and share it with everybody. The investigation's tanked at that point if you do that. It took months, more than a few months. I think it was at least 6 months before people outside of a group of 3 or 4 knew that there was even an investigation taking place. So unfortunately, it takes time, and you've got to try to keep things stabilized while it plays out, which is one of the bigger challenges of it.
Actually, Dean has his hand up. Dean, what's your question?
I was wondering if you could explain to us how the office has been administered since the sheriff's departure. Is there an acting sheriff? Is it you?
No. So Joe McGivern was the chief deputy at the time under Sheriff Bray. And when he was arrested, the delegation went through the statutory process and had a special election. Joe McGivern did put in for it, and he is the sitting sheriff right now. I am the acting chief deputy for the agency, so I'm the number 2 of the agency. My official rank is major, but that's where I'm at this week. Who knows how it can change? But yeah, it's a stable, functioning agency at this point. We came through the other side almost a year ago now. And
so I have a
It's
question,
doing quite
Amanda.
well.
It's Wen.
Sure, go ahead, Wynn.
All right. My name is Wen Graves Moody. I live in Lee. I'm not sure. I don't really have any information on this, but I'm going to pose the question. Would you be in support of formation of a co-response team, including a social worker that maybe could assist on domestic calls, domestic disturbance calls? I don't know if we have that, but has there been any talk around that? Discussion, I should say.
Is that to me, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. I am behind that. One of our deputies is a retired Rochester domestic assault investigator, Bob Frechette. I don't know if you've heard his name in circles or not. He's, to put it mildly, an expert in strangulation cases and talks around the country about it. He's working out of the county attorney's office under us as well. And I like your idea. And we've already started moving. We have a human trafficking officer that's granted through the state and is finally funded. It was on grants, now it's finally funded through the state. And his whole job is a task force approach. And I'm a firm believer in that. And that's why ICAC survives and is as effective as it is. I think task forces are a much better option. It combines resources. It gets different sets of eyes on things, especially in domestic violence cases or in human trafficking cases. It's good to have another set of eyes looking at something that has a different perspective on it, and that can join forces, I guess it would be a lack of a better term, to help people get the services they actually need. Sex assault cases are investigated the same way. It's a team approach. You've got to have a team behind these cases. They're important. And, I've told people over the years, property crimes someone can steal your TV, and frankly, somebody can replace your TV. We can get you a new TV, or you can get another one. I've always felt very strongly that when you assault somebody or commit a crime against a person themselves, it's hard to undo that. And about the only thing we can help people with is to see the case through, have a just result, and help them carry on. And that's going to take more than just a brief interaction, a trial, and then moving on. They're going to need support along the way. So yes, I am a big fan of that idea.
So I guess my question really leans towards like de-escalation training for police officers, maybe having one trained as a social worker, answering calls that a person with that expertise would be helpful in de-escalating, to say that word again.
Yeah, we do have that. We have a crisis intervention team and officers that are specifically trained in what you're talking about. I'm a big fan of that program. I think it's a great idea. And again, I like to see a task force approach to this type of thing. So I don't like to weigh that entire weight on one officer or one deputy. I think it should be a team approach. You should have multiple officers trained in that. And it's frankly expected by the public at this point, and it should be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. Okay. So I'll ask my one last question. Tracy, thank you so much for your patience. We'll plead you in a second. So Stephen, the last question I've got is, what can the lead Dems do to help you?
Get the word out. I can tell you that through this election, this has been a new experience. But getting the proper information out, accurate information, doesn't take long to Google things and find out somebody's background. And I invite people to do that. Spread the word, look at people's actual backgrounds, what has actually happened in their past career, how it panned out, and go from there and let people make informed decisions. I really don't like all the fluff that goes on with politics sometimes. I think people should concentrate on facts, actual backgrounds, and experience. So I guess that if the lead Dems can help spread that word, that would be great.
Sure. And then for the two of you and Tracy, actually, make sure you put your info if you want the team to have it and the committee to have it. Make sure you put it in the chat. And Tracy, you just put your name. You might want to put more than like your email. There you go. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you both so much. And then we'll move on to our last speaker. And Tracy, don't feel rushed that you have 11 minutes. We can go a little bit longer. Make sure that the conversation flows and still keeps going. So the floor is yours, Tracy. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I only put my name in the beginning. I didn't realize that it would actually interrupt Stephen, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
So that's why I held off sending the rest of it. So
That's fine.
So my background, I have a bachelor's degree from Dartmouth College, and I started my law enforcement career with the Rochester Police Department. And while I was at the Rochester Police Department, I was actually going back to school and getting my MBA and a master's in organizational leadership, while I also got my graduate certificate in human resource management. So a lot of my background is in finance and that organizational leadership piece, which is what really interests me. So I started at the Rochester Police Department. While I was there, pretty much from the very beginning, I was assigned a unique position. I was actually that POP officer, that problem-oriented policing officer, where I was assigned to go out, identify problems, and try and fix them. So to fix them rather than put a Band-Aid on them. So a long-term solution was really my goal. So the first thing I did was go out into the community and talk to the people. I talked to residents, I talked to business owners, I talked to tourists, I talked to everybody who was around. And the one thing that was overwhelmingly evident was that we can't do our job without the community. The community is the backbone of the law enforcement agency. So much of what we need to do, we rely on the community. So eventually it turned into a very community-oriented position. So much so that the department, the Rochester Police Department, created a position called the Community Engagement Officer. So I got to go around and tell everybody I was the CEO, the Community Engagement Officer, and really work with the community, all the different stakeholders within the community, and got me to the point where I won the Community Builders Award, the Community Ambassador Award, amongst many others. And going to the point of actually helping to solve problems. So one of the pet projects that I had was to actually try and reduce shoplifting. So I partnered with Walmart, and we worked a lot on how do we reduce their shrink. And we created a kind of a method where we asked for the community's help, and that was through Facebook, amongst other things. And I built the police department's Facebook page up from just a couple hundred people all the way to tens of thousands in the end. And it really helped to reduce their shrink over $500,000. And so much so that they actually nominated me, and I ended up winning the New Hampshire Law Enforcement Partner of the Year award. So it's a not specifically dealing with shoplifting, but a big picture of trying to solve problems rather than put that Band-Aid on them. I have also worked as a welfare officer, a welfare director, really, for several different towns in New Hampshire, where I did everything from the budgets to working with the clients who came in looking for assistance. And one of the main things that I realized while I was doing that was I needed to be really fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars. My budget was based entirely, obviously, out of taxpayer funds. And so I tried to use the money extremely wisely. So for instance, I had a couple who came in and they had been laid off, lost their jobs, and came in looking for assistance with their rent. Now, the town could have gone on to help them with their rent month after month until they, eventually found a job. Who knows when that would have been. Now, that could have been a solution, but I decided that wasn't the most responsible use of taxpayer funds. So what I ended up doing was I used town money to purchase a interview outfit, work with them to do mock interviews, help them actually go online to apply for jobs. And they ended up eventually finding jobs, interviewing well, and they got their job. So what ended up costing the town a little bit more in the beginning ended up solving their problem. And frankly, it made them feel really good about themselves. They didn't need to come begging for assistance, and they felt like they could now stand on their own 2 feet. So that's a lot of where I come from fiscally, and having that MBA also helps me understand budgets and expenses and finances. Once I left the sheriff's office, once I left the Rochester Police Department, I went to the Strafford County Sheriff's Office, where I have worked or overseen every single part of the agency at one point or another, and understand all the different pieces, to include that budgeting piece and the expenses, and how to be very fiscally responsible, as well as understanding operations and all the different pieces of the agency, including the K-9 unit, the different task forces as well. So along with all that, one of the main things that I truly believed in was not just working within our agency, but to partner, like the others have said, to partner with other agencies. But my partnering wasn't quite the same. A lot of what I did was to kind of work with different entities in areas that I thought that the community had a huge need. So for instance, the homeless issue in Strafford County and throughout the state and throughout the country is a huge issue. So I have worked with the New Hampshire Homeless Teens Task Force I have been on the board of directors for the Strafford County Homeless Shelter, and worked with many other agencies. I have partnered with the Monarch School of New England, which does a lot of dealings with those with developmental as well as mental health issues as juveniles. I have worked with the Rochester Crime Line, with the Rotary Club, to try and partner with many, many different agencies to have that outreach. I was on the Education and Public Outreach Committee for the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. So currently, I am still a board member with Community Partners, who deals with those with developmental as well as mental health issues. And we're talking adults at this point. For the most part, we do also deal with juveniles as well, but we work a lot with those with mental health. I'm on the strategic planning committee, as well as the other committees that oversee and make sure that the agency is not violating anybody's individual rights. So working with community partners, there are a lot of things that we have worked to push through. For instance, we now have a rapid response team for those that are experiencing an issue with mental health. That person or their family members or law enforcement can call, and community partners will send out a member of the rapid response team within an hour to at least make contact with them and hopefully connect them with services long term. So a lot of what I'm doing is trying to connect different pieces of not only just government, but the community and other stakeholders as well, to try and solve problems once again, rather than just put that Band-Aid on them. So I am one of those that's trained in crisis intervention, mental health awareness, and have that mental health piece that I think is so important within Strafford County. So I guess I'm open to questions.
Go ahead, Dean.
Hi, Dean Rubine here from Lee. Thanks for taking my question. Actually, a community partner, parent, alumni. These guys helped out my boy, I think, when he was 2 years old. So not adult. But I guess among other questions, I'll ask, was that $500,000 from a single Walmart?
It was actually from the Rochester Walmart that I partnered. Now, I'm sure that there were other things that they were working on to help reduce shrink, but they attributed the vast majority of the reduction in shrink to my efforts, which is why they nominated me.
That's amazing. I had no idea of the magnitude of the problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Go ahead, Wynn.
Yeah, it seems to me, Tracy, that you've answered my question that I asked of Stephen to the 10th degree. So I appreciate all that you've done in the past. That was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just grateful to hear from all three candidates tonight. We've got some substantial people wanting to run for this office, and I'm thankful to all three.
Here, here. Tracy, perhaps you'd like to comment on the former sheriff as well. The other two have.
Well, Mark Brave used to work under me. He was one of the deputies, and then a sergeant who I supervised. So I had an idea of the type of worker he was. He was very, very friendly and outgoing, but I did have concerns. I I definitely saw the issues that I was dealing with, at least personally, when a few months after he took office, he laid me off, eliminated my position. And I don't know how expenses worked before or after he did lay me off, but prior to that, I was one of the sign-offs on all the expenses that did go up to be paid for the county. So I think it's a huge, I'm just gonna be frank and say it, I think it's a disgrace to not only the agency, but the entire county and all the community members and stakeholders involved. I think that one of the things I'm gonna bring to the agency is integrity, acceptance, and accountability. Now that's acceptance and accountability of both within the agency and throughout the community, and to hold people accountable for what they do. Now that's also in a positive way too. If there are huge successes within the agency, to celebrate those as well. So I'm hoping to bring a different, a better and more inclusive feeling from the agency to the community. The only way we're going to solve our problems is to all work together.
Thank you. I hope we can avoid any stories with the Sheriff's Department and the word paramour in the future.
I would just like to say that I'm really thankful that between our different campaigns that there haven't been any negative slurs or anything against each other. So I really appreciate that, and I think they've run a clean campaign.
That's a very good point, and it's been very positive through this whole discussion this evening. It's refreshing. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'll echo
Tracy,
the point that we have.
Oh, go ahead, Dean.
Amanda. I was just going to say we have I was just going to say we have three amazing candidates here. So
Definitely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Tracy, we kind of asked for the other two as well. What are your goals and plans and hopes for the department if you are elected as sheriff?
Just like everybody else, I hope that we continue fulfilling our obligations according to the Constitution. We need to make sure that that piece is first and foremost taken care of, and then to work beyond that to, like Stephen had mentioned, work with the the Drug Task Force, the ICAC, and all that is extremely important. I'd like to expand that. I think that two other pieces are really important: the mental health piece and the homeless issue. And I think part of those two actually overlap each other. I'd like to, one of the things I had wanted to do while I was even early on as a Rochester cop was to help address that homeless issue. And I'm hoping as sheriff, I'd be able to have more authority and more connections to be able to make that happen, to help alleviate that problem.
That's awesome. No, I have a question for you too. For Stephen, sorry, I'm pointing at my screen. For Stephen and Tracy, did you all work together at Rochester or at the Sheriff's Department? Have you guys worked together for a while?
Yeah, Tracy was in Rochester, I think for about 5 years, Tracy, before I took off, or I don't even remember which one of us left first, but yeah, she worked in the pop unit, and it was a different focus than ours has, but Rochester certainly needed that program. I was always in investigations, so it's kind of a separate body in that department, and it's upstairs. It's kind of isolated to itself, and it kind of needs to be, given the investigations they're dealing with. After that, when I went into the sheriff's office, I was mostly working out of the Manchester lab at the federal building, so we didn't have a lot of contact, but I've known Tracy for years.
Yeah, definitely. We were kind of like passing. We just wave at each other at trainings, and and know that the other was there, but that we didn't have a whole lot to work with.
That's awesome. I love it's a small world, right? So that's terrific. So last question for you, Tracy, that I'm gonna say is, how can the Lee Dems help you?
I think, like everybody else, spread the word. I'm hoping that the Lee Dems, along with every other Democratic organization around, will help promote the primary candidate winner and get the word out there, because there is a lot of misinformation. For instance, one thing that has spread around about me is that my degrees are not legitimate. I can tell you that my degrees actually are very legitimate. I remember working a full shift at the Rochester Police Department and driving to class and being in class for 3 hours, driving home. It got to a point where somebody actually reached out to me and said that they've heard this multiple times. Can I address it? And I actually had to send out my transcript to show them that, yes, I do have my degrees. So just to spread the word that like Stephen had mentioned, truth, what's out there is actually legitimate. The experiences I've had are legitimate. The education I have is legitimate, and that I would be a great sheriff for this county.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Does anyone else, anybody on this call have any final thoughts, comments, things they want to say, or how do we end the evening? How anyone have anything to share?
Well, I'll go. I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity tonight. I think this was one of the first planned meetings that came out for the regional Dems, and then it wound up being one of the last ones to actually play out, but it was planned early on, which is kind of neat. No, I really appreciate your time tonight. I'm glad to be able to bring some of this information forward that, frankly, we couldn't come forward with before. And this campaign has actually been a time that we can start to finally talk about this. And I hope, frankly, there is a trial. I hope it's not dealt with a plea. I want it to play out in the courts, and I want the public to understand what happened and how it played out and the work that went into fixing it.
Yeah, Kathryn.
Janet Wall again. I just want to say to everyone, thank you all for all the information you've given us, sharing so much that's personal and important and professional about you and what you've all done. And especially thank you to the Lee Dems for organizing this and making this possible for all of us tonight. Amanda, thank you. And thanks to all the Lee Dems.
Thank you all for being on. Yeah. Kathryn, you're going to say something before.
Yeah, I won't take the time, but I just wanted to say to Win, if you wanted to reach out to me, I have just some experience with working with the co-response with the Sanford Police Department up in Maine, and just how well that's worked. So I have a lot of thoughts and ideas and experience with the mental health component and that full co-response. So I'd love to discuss further.
And that was actually why I put my little hand up, is because I felt like I was remiss in not asking you that question. So I appreciate you commenting on it. Thank you.
Thanks. Cool. Well, with that said, the best of luck to all of you next week. Congratulations just for running and getting a taste of how wonderful it can be to be a candidate. So half the people on this call are former state reps or current state reps. So or select board, we've got 2 select board members. So we all feel your excitement and pain. If you should need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm gonna, after this, it will get posted on YouTube. The committee will get it. It'll be posted on social. Everyone will get your contact info who's on my mailing list. So if you should need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And to those who are on the committee, don't hesitate to reach out to them as well. So with that, y'all have a good night.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great night, folks.
This was a tough call because we still have a tough decision to make. You all are great.
Yes, we do.
Win, I left you a sign. I put it in your lawn.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.